What's going on, everybody? This week we're talking about test anxiety, and this video, part 2, is all about 5 practical tips for you to overcome test anxiety on the day of your exam. So I truly hope that this is helpful. Now, I truly enjoy making this content for you, and if you find it useful, think about subscribing, because when you subscribe, then you're gonna see every single video that's gonna come up in the next few months, and there's some exciting content coming up. All right, here we go. So first thing I gotta say is time, okay? Like, we all know how important time is, but this is really time before the exam. See, if you prepare enough ahead of the time, you're gonna overcome your anxiety on the test day, because you've got to give yourself enough time to study, enough time to prepare, and enough time to practice. And I'm telling you, the more you can do that, the less anxiety you'll feel on the actual day. When you don't prepare for an exam, that's when the anxiety sits in and it internalizes. And I'm telling you, it can really change up your results. So my big philosophy is this: if you know you have to do something eventually, such as study, I might as well start it now. All right. So if you're a few weeks away from your exam, do it now. Or even if you're a few days ahead, do it now and don't wait for the last minute. I want to talk about practice. Now, we all know that practice is really important, but what is it about practice that's truly helpful? Well, first things first, practice builds confidence, and you should already know that, and you should already feel that. Every single time you practice something, you build your confidence in that practice. Now, don't let the test intimidate you. And I'm telling you, all AP exams are super intimidating because they usually ask something that you've never studied, and immediately you start thinking about, how much have I actually practiced for this? Am I really ready for this? When in reality, you just got to slow it down and you got to see what they're asking, and you actually most likely know it. See, it's a real mental game, all these AP exams, and you've just got to stay one step ahead. Now, confidence comes from knowing you've taken the time to practice. Now, you can't really fool anybody, especially yourself, and tell yourself that, hey, I'm ready for this, but in reality, I haven't studied versus all my peers have studied. So really take the time to practice, because it really builds your confidence. Think about it. If I gave you an objective to beat a certain time on a 1 mile race. So a 1 mile race around a standard track, a high school track, is 4 laps. So if you had to beat a certain time in the mile, would you practice? Yes. And most likely you'd practice way ahead. You wouldn't just run 4 laps on the day before and think, okay, I'm ready to go. No, like, if you know you've got to beat a certain time, then you most likely are going to get on track weeks ahead, and you've got to practice, and you've got to train, and you've got to know what it takes to actually do it. It would surprise you to know how many people actually don't practice the actual test until the actual test. They actually don't practice it at all. Maybe like they'll read a little bit here and there, but on the day of, they're seeing everything for like the first time. And I'm telling you, it can absolutely affect your test score. So this one's pretty simple. Come prepared. So do you know what to expect? The format of the exam, what you're going to need to bring, and just knowing in general what to expect will lower the anxiety on the day of. Believe it or not, most students actually don't finish their AP exam because it's so long. And, once again, like, you've got to come prepared, and you got to know what it takes to finish on time. So distractions, let's talk about this one. This one's a big one. So focus will actually lead to success. Okay, so distractions will actually slow you down. So what are some examples of distractions? Well, it could really be anything, even your phone. Even if you put it on silent, and if you don't practice with no distractions, it can actually hurt your actual overall exam. So a big thing is before your actual test, make sure you practice that exact same test, exactly how you plan to do it on the day of the exam. And if you do that, then you're going to be so successful, because you're going to kind of know what to expect. All right. So distractions, make sure you control those. Self-care. Okay. So this last one's really important, just in general, like, for you to have an overall great test taking experience. But let's talk about food, sleep, and exercise. So for food, research recommends slow release carbohydrates. So those are examples of oatmeal, whole grain, cereal or toast, granola, anything that slowly releases carbohydrates. If you eat something that's too high in sugar, then you could even have a sugar crash. All right. So think about that and keep that in mind. Protein, milk, yogurt, and eggs. Like, these are just some recommended foods that research recommends people take on the day of their test. Let's talk about sleep. Obviously, 7 to 8 hours before a test. However, my big advice, and this is my personal advice, is don't just sleep 7 to 8 hours on the day before the test. 2 days in advance, start doing that so that your body starts naturally getting used to receiving 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then finally, for exercise, don't wake up right before a test. I know sometimes we don't plan to and we just do, because research shows once again that you've got to get up, you got to get active, and you got to get the blood flowing. Even 10 minutes of walking around just to get everything flowing in your body. And then you can sit down and take that test. Give your brain a jolt, all right? So that's a huge part of it. Hey, I hope all this content was helpful. Next week, I'm so excited to finish off this series with a video on how to deal with success, so doing well on an exam, and then how to deal with failure. Like what happens when you fail an exam and how can you kind of pick yourself back up? All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.